First of all, thanks to the Wave Foundation that I have been given this opportunity. And the topic which I have chosen for this presentation is that the Vedic corpus, philosophy, religion, and narrative. And when I am using these three dimensions, philosophy, religion, and narrative, I just want to be analytical. Philosophy means being crit- critical, being open minded, and thinking about the wonder narratives. Religion is, on the other hand, talking about taking the prayers to the whole cosmos, and narratives is all about the grand narrative in the sense of you know metaphysical question and ontology. So when I'm taking the notion of Vedic corpus, it is not just limited to the Vedic text only, rather it encompasses the philosophy, the Shat darshanas as well as the Nastic darshanas. So this is the basic introduction of my topic. Now let me come to the there is a problem that my slides are not thank you. So I would like to start with two notions that I have used. The notion of myth. So I have used in two sense. First, myth is the religious myth, which is in the positive sense that is very essential for the human kind in terms of providing the myth, in terms of providing the meaning. Take for an instance, Carl Jung in the Symbols of Transformation said the religious myth is one of man's greatest and most significant achievements, giving him the security and inner strength not to be crushed by the monstrousness of the universe. Similarly, he further noted that considered from the standpoint of realism, the symbol is not, of course, an external truth, but it is a psychological need, because without the psychological fulfillment, no one can live a true life. And when Carl Jung is explaining such kind of thing, he is referring to the greatest civilization, among which Indian civilization is one of the prominent one. He refers something about the ancient scripture where we Indians pray the sun. That he said that it is the role of the religious symbol to give the meaning to the life of a man. The wise Indians believe that they are the sons of Father Sun, and Mother Earth, and this belief endows their life with the perspective that goes far beyond their limited existence. It gives them ample space for unfolding of personality and permits them a full life as complete person. So based on this notion, I just want to tell that philosophy, religion, and myth, in terms of narratives, are very much essential that imbue our life with meaning. Now, philosophy, which basically deals with the problem, let me come to the central problem which I am discussing through my paper. The central theme is that we all know that Vedas are very prominent scriptures in Indian context. Typically, we know that those who believe in the Vedas are also known as Astikas, and even those who are Nastic depends on the existence of Vedas, because the very definition that Vedo Nindako Nastika, they also depend on the existence of Vedas. So without the atheistic philosophy, the Pratipakshas cannot exist. So this is the basic abstract which I am going to discuss. And there are certain allegations on the Vedic corpus which I have taken as a purpaks through, and later I would be gonna provide some Pratipaksa. And these are the three myths. This is the second notion I have taken, myths in the sense of illusion. First, that we consider that Vedic corpus, including Indian philosophy, is all about spirituality. It is all about authority. Authority in a sense that it does not transcend the authority. It always limit to the Vedic scripture or whatever the Veda says. Just like the prophetic religion limit themselves to their text like Bible or Quran. Similarly, Indian philosophy also limits itself to the Vedic authority. And apart from this spirituality and authoritarian allegation, it is also considered that it does not give scope to the great grand narratives. It just limits itself to the myths. As I earlier told, that myths basically represents the greatest civilization, whether it is the Greek civilization or the Indian one. So I would later explain why it is essential. So what are the basic challenges? So challenges offer within the tradition as well. Take for an instance great stalwarts such as B.K. Matilal or N.K. Devraj or Professor Rajendra Prasad. These are recent Indian philosophers who have claimed that, of course, Indian philosophy talks about ontology and axiology, not actually epistemology, but rarely we find the axiological explanation about the human world order. How should we live, or what is the beauty? Such kind of question. And this is a very great allegation. They basically take the Western perspective in their mindset, and then they look upon the Vedic corpus and said that of course we have a logical explanation of metaphysical and epistemological problem, but we do not find the same kind of discussion in the moral realm. So it is a very big allegation, and of course they have provided certain references and argument. More references is belong to the same realm. N.K. Devraj also said this same thing. And P.T. Raju, a South Indian scholar, said there is a general lack of interest in ethical problems as such in Indian philosophy, which basically ground its foundation in the Vedas itself. Now, let me give some responses which I have broadly discussed in my paper. That when such scholars such as Albert Schweitzer or William Archer or the recent Indian stalwart, and when they allegate the Indian thought in terms of that these the whole Vedic corpus lacks the logic, reasoning, axiological discussion, and so on. They basically neglect the greatest tradition, such as the Buddhists emphasize the scientific spirit. On the other hand, Vedanta explored the cosmopolitanism. Recently, Radha in the 1950s, Radhakrishnan noted the write down the ethics of Vedanta. Similarly, how can we forget the legacy of Nyaya, and which lately developed in the form of Navya Nyaya? So that sophistication or logical explanation in the Nyaya school of thought have been totally neglected by such scholars who allegate that Indian scholars or Indian that whole Vedic corpus limits itself to the spirituality or authority and myth. Now, let me give you some references which will briefly explain my intention in it. And one is given by the Amartya Sen in his famous book Argumentative Indian. He says that Vedas are not just about the external world or otherworldly things. There are plenty of things which belongs to this world and have been beautifully discussed. So Amartya Sen quoted one thing: when a wife and a family is disturbed by a man who is the representative of a family, and he basically plays the gamble. So how his mother and wife and friends basically suggest him that why he should not play the gambles, and he should be engaged in the day-to-day activities such as farming or any other kind of thing. Similarly, I have read Dr. Wendy's translation of Rigveda, where he is explaining the legacy of Rigveda itself, which basically represent the core and the soul of philosophy, the doubt, the wonder. He says that who really knows, who will here to proclaim it, how this world came into existence, where from this existence actually came from. The gods came afterwards with the creation of this universe. Who then knows when it has arisen? So when such kind of critical questions are found within the text, the Rigveda, I'm not talking about the later part, which is also called as the Upanishad, the end part of the Vedas. The beginning or the starting point of the Vedas itself, embraces the idea of wonder and curiosity and doubt itself, which basically philosophy embraces in one way or another. So let me come to the conclusion. So I can associate the Vedic corpus and differentiate the philosophical portion into two ways. One is the pre-systematic phase, and the second is systematic phase. So when we talk about the recharge, so take for the Rigved recharge or Yajurved recharge and so on. So we can put them in the pre-systematic phase, just like in the Greek period, the pre-Socratic thinkers are considered the founder of the philosophy, such as Heraclitus and many other, Thales and many other. In a similar sense, systematic phase belong to the Sad Darsana and Nastik Darsanas, where we have the Nyaya, Vaisheshik, Sankhya, Yoga, Vedant, Mimamsa, and many others. Now, when we can divide this form of distinction, pre-systematic and systematic, we can of course understand why we can say that whole reality of Indian philosophy consists in the unity. So whether it is Vedas or Upanishad, which is also the part of Upanishad, belong to the same unity. Systematic phase, of course, everyone knows about its legacy. Now, second, the cosmopolitan and epistemic tolerance, which would basically define again the philosophy of Vedic corpus. We know very well about the Vasudev Kutumbakam or Ten Tak Ten Bhunjita, or that like let the noble thought comes from the every side. This is the beginning portion of the Rig Veda or our Upanishad, or the part of the Vedas, Maha Upanishad and many other. Similarly, when we talk about the religion uh, is I'm not taking the conventional sense which we today uses. I'm taking religion in a sense which basically talks about the unity of all humanity, which talks about the welfare of whole cosmos. And this is what we find in the Vedic corpus. We know the Shanti mantra, or we know the Gayatri mantra, which talks about why we should engage in the holistic philosophy or holistic way of life, which talks about the shanti of everyone, peacefulness of everyone. So based on this distinction, that narratives is available there in the Vedic corpus, and the philosophy of cosmopolitanism and epistemic tolerance is available there. Similarly, religious prayer is also available there for every creature, every living creature as well. So at last, I just want to conclude with the notion with which our stalwart Professor Dayakrishnan J. Monty and Amartya Sen says, that when we talk about the Vedic corpus, we find generally the two distinction. On the one hand, we have the scholar who have a strong apathy. They say that there is nothing in the Vedic corpus or Indian thought or Indian culture. And on the other hand, there are some who talks about the fervent enthusiasm. So when we talk about the fervent enthusiasm, we should not engage in any kind of things. So based on this philosophy, we can say that philosophy should be taken into the classical darshanik come sent position, which means that philosophy is a way of life, and this contains the essence of my philosophy. Thank you.